basic unit of structure and function, stated the student for an introduction. Cell swell deduction with such repercussions like hydras, but understood as sexless reproduction. Experiments supported theoretical assumptions on cell size requirements, features and construction. 3 ideas quite expansive and clear, laid a foundation to understand the biosphere. First, cells compose all organisms without emission, and cell products are given off from metabolism. Next up, another logical supposition. New cells come from division of those already living. The next part was spark microbiology. Cells are as small as could possibly be and also alive. More concepts arrive. Cell units have the blueprints for the functions of life. Yeah.
A cell living in the world. A cell living in a cell living in the world. A cell living in a cell living in the world. A cell living in a cell living in the world. A cell living in the world.
Chemical reactions happen all of the time at sites inside the cell. That's how I'm writing this rhyme, and how you listen to lines. That's quite a design. The watchmaker was blind. Done up the tree we done climbed across the eons of time. Life would adapt and refine metabolic pathways and impact the environs. Watch these terms squirm around like a worm in the slime, or a germinating seedling trying to find the sunshine. Before we move on, I should mention some names on whose shoulders we stand and how we've come to explain. He saw pollen grains moving random and strange. Brownie in motion was his claim to fame. In 1831 he found the first cell structure, and every plant cell he saw which made him wonder, what was this inside the cell? A little organelle. Coined the nucleus, what it did time would tell. The Scottish botanist and 2 German biologists and a Jewish scientist who was all but forgotten since Schleid and Schwann and Remack were the name. Beer Cow took credit and wasn't ashamed, cause anti-Semitism was just part of the frame. Chauvinists and racists always rigging the game, so who knows all the knowledge that was lost in vain from racist campaigns that rained and brought pain.
A cell living in the world. A cell living in a cell living in the world. A cell living in a cell living in the world. A cell living in a cell living in the world. A cell living in the world.
Back to the explanation of generation, a new life which might debate the congregation about creation. Give him a swan neck flask, some sterilized broth, and a question to ask. Yup, Louis Pasteur was tasked to explore how cells originate from a source and not the Lord. He got 2 flasks, boiled broth in both, exposed one to air, and that one was a growth. After a few days, other flasks still clear, microbes didn't appear, and now we still adhere to biogenesis and reproduction. Not spontaneously generated life forming from nothing, but if you really stop and think deeply and discreetly, there's a question unanswered by cell theory. All cells arise from other cells, that's great, but how and when did the first cells originate?